High Admiral Zexthar of the Kraxan Empire stood before the massive observation window of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, his four arms clasped behind his back as he studied the blue-green planet below. Earth, such an unremarkable name for such an unremarkable world. Another primitive species achieving basic spaceflight, he muttered, mandibles clicking in mild amusement. How many does this make, Science Director? Science Director Venra consulted her quantum tablet, her scaled fingers dancing across the holographic interface. This marks the 47th Level 2 civilization we've encountered in this sector, Admiral. Their technological advancement matches the typical profile: rudimentary fusion drives, basic orbital habitats, and minimal genetic engineering capabilities. The Admiral's crimson eyes narrowed as he watched a human cargo vessel lumber past, its engines glowing with what he considered inefficient plasma discharge. The ship's design was blocky, utilitarian, lacking the elegant biomechanical aesthetics of Kraxan engineering. Primitive indeed. And yet, Venra continued, her voice carrying an unusual note of hesitation, there are anomalies in their development pattern. Anomalies. Zexthar turned one eye stalk toward her, while keeping the other fixed on Earth. Their technological progression doesn't follow standard evolutionary curves. They achieved spaceflight barely 2 centuries after discovering powered flight. Their computational systems show unusual advancement in certain areas while remaining remarkably basic in others. And their energy signatures, she paused, mandibles twitching. They don't quite match their apparent level of development. Zexthar waved 2 of his hands dismissively. Natural variations. Every species develops differently. What matters is their current capability, and by that measure, they're centuries behind us. The massive holographic display at the bridge's center flickered to life, showing the approaching human diplomatic vessel. It was small, perhaps a quarter the size of the Eternal Dawn, with clean lines that somehow managed to look both elegant and primitive at the same time. The humans request permission to dock, Admiral, announced Communications Officer Krell. Their delegation is led by someone called Ambassador Sarah Chen. Grant them access to Docking Bay 3, Zexthar commanded. And make sure our gravity generators are set to their standard. We wouldn't want our new subjects to feel uncomfortable. His mandibles clicked in amusement at his own joke. The human delegation arrived with precisely calculated punctuality. Ambassador Chen was shorter than the average Kraxan, with dark hair pulled back severely from her face and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She carried herself with a dignity that Zexthar found almost amusing given humanity's obvious technological inferiority. High Admiral, she greeted him in perfect Kraxan standard, her translator working flawlessly. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I thank you for this audience. Zexthar settled into his command throne, deliberately positioning himself to tower over the human delegation. Ambassador Chen, the Kraxan Empire welcomes Earth to the galactic community. We look forward to guiding your species' development. Something flickered in Chen's eyes, so quickly that Zexthar almost missed it. Guiding our development? She asked, her tone neutral. Of course. As the dominant civilization in this sector, it's our duty to help emerging species integrate properly into galactic society. We'll need to establish appropriate technology transfer protocols, trade restrictions, and defensive arrangements. Defensive arrangements. Chen's eyebrow raised slightly. For your protection, naturally. The galaxy can be dangerous for developing worlds. Under our protection, you'll be safe to develop at an appropriate pace. Chen smiled then, a small expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. Admiral, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. We're not seeking protection. We're here to establish diplomatic relations as equals. The bridge crew's collective laughter echoed through the chamber. Zexthar himself clicked his mandibles in amusement. Equals. My dear Ambassador, while your ambition is admirable, surely you must understand the vast technological gap between our civilizations. Your most advanced chips can barely achieve 10% of light speed. Your weapons are based on crude plasma technology. Your AI systems are practically non-existent. Are they? Chen asked quietly. Something in her tone made Zexthar's dorsal spines tingle. Our scans are quite thorough, Ambassador. We know exactly what your civilization is capable of. Chen's smile widened slightly. High Admiral, I am authorized to extend one piece of advice from my government. Be very, very certain of your assumptions about Earth's capabilities before you act on them. Zexthar leaned forward, his amusement turning to irritation. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Not at all, Admiral. Simply a friendly suggestion. Now, shall we discuss actual diplomatic relations, or should I return to Earth and inform my government that the Kraxan Empire is not interested in peaceful cooperation? The Admiral's crimson eyes flashed. You may inform your government that the Kraxan Empire has designated Earth as a Class 3 protectorate. We will begin establishing our oversight protocols immediately. A garrison fleet will arrive within your solar month to ensure compliance. Chen nodded once, her expression unchanged. I see. Then I'm afraid this meeting is concluded. She turned to leave, then paused. One last thing, Admiral. There's an old Earth saying you might want to consider. Appearances can be deceiving. As the human delegation departed, Science Director Venera approached the Admiral's throne. Sir, about those anomalies I mentioned. Enough, Zexthar cut her off. Prepare the garrison fleet deployment orders. It's time to show these humans their place in the galaxy. As the Eternal Dawn's crew bustled with activity, none of them noticed the small device Ambassador Chen had left behind. A device that, despite the ship's most advanced scans, appeared to be nothing more than a simple decorative ornament. None of them realized that at that very moment, every word, every plan, every detail of their ship's capabilities was being transmitted through subspace channels that their sensors couldn't even detect. And none of them could have possibly known that deep beneath Earth's oceans, inside mountains, and hidden in pocket dimensions, humanity's real civilization was stirring from its long slumber, amused that yet another empire had made the same old mistake. The Kraxan garrison fleet arrived exactly as promised. 1,000 warships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation around Earth's orbit. Fleet Commander Yixtel stood proudly on his command bridge, expecting to find a panicked human response. Instead, he found nothing. No defensive fleet, no planetary shield activation, no emergency broadcasts, just silence. Status report, he barked, all four hands gripping his command rail. Sir, we're detecting normal civilian traffic patterns, his sensor officer reported, confusion evident in her voice. Commercial vessels are maintaining their regular routes. Orbital stations continue normal operations. There's no indication they've even acknowledged our presence. Yixtel's mandibles clicked in irritation. Open a channel to their planetary defense command. The communications array hummed to life, and after a moment, a pleasant human voice responded. Earth Traffic Control. How may we assist you today? This is Fleet Commander Yixtel of the Kraxan Empire Garrison Fleet. You will immediately submit to our authority and begin implementing the approved protectorate protocols. A pause. I'm sorry, Commander, but I'm not authorized to handle diplomatic requests. I can direct you to the Department of Extraterrestrial Relations if you'd like to schedule an appointment. Schedule an... Yixtel's scales flushed dark with anger. This is not a request. We have 1,000 warships surrounding your planet. Yes, we've noted your vessels on our traffic control grid. Please maintain your current positions to avoid interfering with commercial shipping lanes. Have a pleasant day. The channel closed. Sir, his tactical officer called out, we're detecting some unusual readings from Earth's lunar facilities. Define unusual. They're disappearing, sir, one by one, just fading away. Yixtel rushed to the tactical display. Sure enough, the numerous human installations on their moon were vanishing, leaving perfectly smooth craters behind. Not destroyed. There was no debris, no energy signatures, nothing. It was as if they'd never existed. Impossible, he muttered. No species has perfected matter transmission on that scale. A junior officer suddenly called out, "Sir, Mars colony. It's gone." The massive display showed the red planet, now completely devoid of human presence. Every dome, every facility, every piece of equipment vanished without a trace. "Find them," Yix-Tel roared. "Where are they going?" "Sir, message incoming from Earth. Text only." The message appeared on his screen. "Thank you for your patience. Your assumption of authority has been processed and denied. Please vacate Earth's solar system within the next standard hour to avoid any unfortunate incidents." Yix-Tel laughed, though there was an edge of unease to it. "They think they can threaten us. Launch probe drones. Full planetary scan. I want to know exactly what they're hiding." The drones deployed, spreading out in a standard search pattern. They made it halfway to Earth's atmosphere before simultaneously shutting down. "Sir," his engineering chief's voice shook slightly. "The drones. Something accessed their quantum cores. Rewrote their base code in microseconds. This shouldn't be possible." Another message appeared. "Final warning. 45 minutes remaining. We would prefer to avoid demonstrating why your presence is unwelcome." Yix-Tel slammed all four fists onto his command console. "Launch fighters. Full combat spread. Show these primitives what real military power looks like." The fighters launched, sleek biomechanical craft representing the peak of Kraxan engineering. They made it exactly 10 seconds into their attack run before every single one stopped dead in space. "Fighter squadrons reporting complete systems failure," Tactical announced. "No damage, no hostile action detected. Their systems just turned off." "How?" Yix-Tel demanded. "How are they doing this?" The answer came in the form of a hologram materializing on his bridge. Ambassador Chen, looking exactly as she had during the first contact meeting. "Commander Yix-Tel," she said pleasantly, "I can see you're confused. Let me explain something about humanity. We achieved what you would consider level 2 civilization status roughly 1,000 years ago. Since then, we found it convenient to maintain that appearance while developing in ways your science hasn't even theorized yet." "Impossible," Yix-Tel whispered. "Our scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Chen finished. "Those clumsy ships you've been watching. Essentially theater props. Those primitive colonies you just saw vanish. They were never really there, just very convincing projections hiding our actual facilities." "Why?" he managed to ask. "Why the deception?" Chen's smile turned sad. "Because every time we've revealed our true capabilities to other species, they've reacted with fear, aggression, or attempted conquest. So we decided to try a different approach. Let everyone think we're harmless while we observe how they treat lesser species. It's quite revealing." The hologram stepped closer. "You have 30 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely. Oh, and please inform High Admiral Zexthar that the device I left on his ship wasn't just for surveillance. If he checks his fleet's quantum cores, he'll find they've all been quietly rewritten. You've essentially been operating on our sufferance since first contact." As Chen's hologram faded, Yix-Tel stood frozen, watching as more human installations simply winked out of existence across the solar system, revealing glimpses of something far more advanced in their wake, something his sensors still couldn't properly process. And in the darkness between worlds, ancient human warships began waking up, their true forms finally shimmering into view, waiting to see if the Kraxan Empire was wise enough to run. The Kraxan Empire did not run. Pride, that ancient destroyer of empires, wouldn't allow it. Instead, High Admiral Zexthar ordered the immediate deployment of the Empire's first strike fleet, 3,000 of their most advanced warships, carrying technology that had subjugated dozens of civilizations. They emerged from hyperspace to find the garrison fleet in complete disarray, their ships drifting in perfect, geometric patterns they hadn't chosen. Fleet Commander Yix-Tel's voice shook as he reported their situation. "The humans, "They're not what we thought, Admiral. They'd been playing with us like." His transmission cut off as every ship in both fleets suddenly went dark. When power returned seconds later, every screen, every holographic display showed the same message: so be it. Deep within the orbit of Saturn, space itself seemed to ripple. The gas giant's rings began to move in impossible ways, fragments of ice and rock sliding apart to reveal what they'd been hiding. It wasn't a fleet in any conventional sense. The vessels that emerged defied Kraxan classification systems. Their forms shifted and flowed, some seemingly made of pure energy, others appearing to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Impossible," Zexthar whispered, watching his sensor displays try and fail to make sense of what they were seeing. No species could hide this level of technology. Actually, Ambassador Chen's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Hiding it was the easy part. The hard part was maintaining our facade of primitiveness, while watching species like yours make the same mistakes over and over. The human ships, if they could even be called ships, moved with casual disregard for physics as the Kraxan understood it. They didn't so much fly as reshape space around themselves, their very presence causing quantum fluctuations that made the Empire's most advanced sensors gibber in confusion. "Opening fire," Zexthar commanded, his voice steady despite his growing dread. 4,000 Kraxan warships unleashed their full arsenal: plasma torpedoes, quantum disruptors, dark matter lances. Enough firepower to crack a planet. The human vessels didn't evade. They didn't raise shields. They simply existed, and the incoming fire passed through them as if they were holograms. Or perhaps the weapons themselves had become illusory. Even Zexthar's own eyes couldn't quite process what he was seeing. "A rather impressive display," Chen's voice commented. "Primitive, but impressive. Perhaps a demonstration of actual advanced weaponry is in order." A single human vessel, smaller than a Kraxan scout ship, moved forward. There was a brief flash of something. Not light, not energy as the Kraxan understood it, but a fundamental shift in reality itself. When it cleared, 1,000 Kraxan ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed. They hadn't been converted to energy or torn apart. They were just gone, as if they'd never been there at all. "That," Chen explained casually, "was one of our civilian mining tools, repurposed for this demonstration. Would you like to see what our actual weapons can do?" "What are you?" Zexthar demanded, his mighty empire's greatest fleet now shaking in the face of power it couldn't comprehend. The answer came not just in words, but in data, streaming directly into the minds of every Kraxan present. Images, histories, understanding. Humanity had achieved spaceflight not 2 centuries after powered flight, but 2 millennia. They had spread throughout their solar system, not with crude rockets and plasma drives, but by learning to fold space itself. Those clumsy ships, those primitive colonies, all elaborate props in a galaxy-spanning masquerade. "We are what happens," Chen's voice said softly, "when a species faces extinction not once, not twice, but dozens of times and survives. We are what happens when a civilization decides that advancement without wisdom is the surest path to destruction. We are what happens when a species learns to transcend not just physics, but their own nature." Another flash, and half the remaining Kraxan fleet found itself suddenly orbiting Jupiter, their most advanced FTL drives reduced to toys in comparison to whatever the humans had done to move them. "For centuries," Chen continued, "we've watched, hidden behind our mask of primitiveness. We've seen empires rise and fall. We've watched species achieve greatness, only to destroy themselves with their own advancement. And we've seen the strong prey upon the weak. Again and again and again. The remaining Kraxan ships found themselves being herded, arranged in perfect formations by forces they couldn't detect or resist. Their most advanced quantum AIs were being rewritten in real time, their supposedly unhackable systems laid bare by human technology, so advanced it might as well have been magic. Consider this a teaching moment. Chen's voice had taken on an almost maternal tone. Your empire has exactly one chance to learn what so many others have failed to grasp. True power lies not in domination, but in understanding. Not in conquest, but in cooperation. The human ships began to shift again, some seemingly merging with space itself, others taking on forms that hurt to look at. Geometric impossibilities that suggested dimensions beyond normal spacetime. You have a choice, High Admiral Zexthar. You can return to your empire, maintain your pride, and force us to demonstrate exactly how far behind you really are. Or you can admit that perhaps, just perhaps, your understanding of the galaxy and your place in it needs serious revision. The human vessels moved again, and suddenly every Kraxan ship found itself facing Earth. The blue-green world seemed different now, not the primitive backwater they'd dismissed, but something ancient and powerful, wearing primitive technology like a child's costume. And in the silence of space, the Kraxan Empire faced a truth that would reshape their civilization. They had never been the advanced ones. They had never been the teachers. They had always been the students, and class was finally in session. The fall of the Kraxan Empire wasn't marked by massive battles or dramatic last stands. Instead, it collapsed with the quiet inevitability of a house of cards in a gentle breeze. It started with data, seemingly random glitches in the Empire's vast quantum networks. Financial records began showing discrepancies. Military deployment orders contradicted themselves. Communication systems experienced selective failures. At first, it seemed like normal technical issues. Then patterns emerged. Supreme Chancellor Vexcath stood in the Imperial Palace's Central Command Center, watching his empire unravel on countless holographic displays. How? He demanded of his assembled advisors. How deep does their infiltration go? A human hologram materialized in the center of the room. Not Ambassador Chen this time, but a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. There was no infiltration, Chancellor. We were already here. We've always been here. Impossible. Our security. Your security systems. The man smiled. We helped design them. Those quantum encryption protocols you're so proud of. We wrote them. The AI systems running your infrastructure. We shaped their evolution. Your entire civilization has been developing inside parameters we established centuries ago. Vexcath's mandibles clicked in denial. No species could maintain such a deception. You still don't understand. The human's hologram walked through the room, gesturing at the displays showing the Empire's dissolution. This isn't about technological superiority. It's about patience. While you were busy building warships and subjugating lesser species, we were quietly becoming part of your civilization's foundation. Across the Empire, the truth was becoming apparent. Those primitive human traders, they'd been mapping supply lines and dependencies for centuries. The simple agricultural worlds that fed the Empire's core systems. Many were actually human operations, their true nature hidden behind technological veils. Your empire, the human continued, isn't falling to external force. It's simply being shown its actual structure. Those loyal colony worlds. They've known about us for generations. Your subjugated species, most of them have been in diplomatic contact with Earth longer than they've been part of your empire. Reports flooded in from across Kraxan space. Entire sectors were declaring independence, their leaders revealing centuries-old agreements with humanity. Trade routes collapsed as human-operated shipping networks simply stopped running. Factory worlds ground to a halt as their quantum cores, all based on human-designed architecture, initiated long-dormant protocols. Who are you? Vexcath managed to ask. Dr. James Martinez, Earth Historical Integration Division. The hologram's smile turned sympathetic. We're the ones who make sure species like yours don't destroy themselves or others while growing up. Sometimes that means letting you think you're in charge until you're ready for the truth. In the Kraxan homeworld's orbit, the Empire's mighty defense fleet discovered that their ship's quantum cores had been running human software all along. Weapon systems refused to fire. Engine controls responded only to human commands. Centuries of apparent technological independence revealed as carefully managed development. Your civilization, Martinez explained, like many others, made a common mistake. You assumed that advancement meant domination, that technological superiority gave you the right to control others. We've spent centuries gradually showing you alternatives, guiding your development while letting you think you were the ones in control. The displays showed more of the Empire's structure dissolving. Hidden human quantum nodes activated throughout Craxan space, revealing networks of influence and control that had been invisible for generations. The Empire hadn't been conquered. It had been carefully shaped, its growth guided by hands it never suspected existed. But why? Vexcath asked, watching his life's work dissolve. Why maintain this facade? Because every species needs to develop at its own pace. We couldn't simply arrive and announce that we were taking control. That would have stunted your cultural and social development. Instead, we became part of your society's fabric, quietly ensuring you didn't destroy yourselves or others while you grew. Throughout the Empire, hidden quantum archives activated, revealing the true history of countless worlds. Species the Craxan thought they had conquered had actually been under human protection all along. Technological breakthroughs that had seemed homegrown were revealed as carefully planned introductions of human knowledge. Your empire isn't being destroyed, Martins assured the shocked chancellor. It's being shown what it actually is, a developmental project designed to help your species learn and grow. The only difference is that now you're ready to know the truth. A final display activated, showing the real map of known space. The Craxan Empire had never been one of the dominant powers. It had been one of many carefully managed civilizations, all developing under humanity's hidden guidance. Welcome, Martinez said kindly, to the actual galactic community. Now that you understand your place in it, perhaps we can begin discussing your civilization's real future. And in the silence that followed, Vexcath and his empire faced their greatest challenge yet. Learning to be students rather than conquerors, understanding that true power lay not in domination, but in the wisdom to know how much they had yet to learn. 1 year after the revelation of humanity's true nature, the galactic landscape had transformed in ways few could have imagined. The great Craxan Empire, once proud conquerors, now sat at a very different kind of council, one where size and military might meant far less than wisdom and cooperation. Former Supreme Chancellor Vexcath, now simply Representative Vexcath, sat in Earth's primary diplomatic chamber, a vast space that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Around him sat representatives from hundreds of species, some he recognized, others so advanced or different that his mind could barely process their forms. Ambassador Chen stood at the chamber's center, her form occasionally shifting to accommodate the perceptual needs of different species. The transition period has been completed, she announced. It's time to explain why we chose this moment to reveal ourselves. The chamber's walls became transparent, showing not just space, but multiple layers of reality simultaneously. What had seemed like empty void was revealed to be teeming with life and energy operating on levels the Craxan had never imagined. Humanity, Chen continued, has served as the galaxy's custodians for millennia. We've guided species through their development, prevented catastrophic wars, and maintained a balance that allowed civilizations to grow at their own pace. But now, something approaches that requires a united response. The display shifted, showing something vast and dark moving between galaxies. Even through the filtered image, its mere presence made Vexcath's scales ripple with primordial fear. We call them the Void Dancers, a new voice spoke. Dr. Martinez appeared, his form now clearly more than human. They consume galaxies, not through violence, but by converting all matter and energy into something incompatible with our form of existence. They're not malevolent. They simply exist in a way that makes our existence impossible. Why tell us now? Vexcath asked, his voice steady despite his fear. Why not continue guiding us from the shadows? Because facing this threat requires something more than technological advancement, Chen explained. It requires a true union of civilizations, not one built on deception or control, but on mutual understanding and genuine cooperation. The chamber filled with images of different species' achievements, not their wars or conquests, but their unique contributions to art, science, and understanding. The Kraxen's own developments in biomechanical engineering were featured prominently. Every species, Martins continued, brings something unique to this coalition. The Kraxen's ability to merge biological and mechanical systems, the Zethel's understanding of quantum consciousness, the Vrax's mastery of dimensional mathematics. Even the youngest species have perspectives that might prove crucial. We hid ourselves, Chen added, not out of fear or arrogance, but to allow each civilization to develop its own character, its own way of seeing and understanding. Now those different perspectives may be our greatest weapon against what comes. The displays showed new images, vast construction projects taking place throughout the galaxy. What had seemed like primitive human outposts were revealed as nodes in a galaxy-spanning network of defenses and research stations. The age of separation is over, Martins announced. The barriers between levels of civilization, the pretense of hierarchy, all of it must end. What comes next will require something new. A true galactic civilization, where each species contributes its unique strengths to the whole. Vexcath watched as new data streamed into his consciousness, humanity's real history, their discoveries, their reasons for maintaining their masquerade for so long. He saw how they had guided species away from self-destruction, how they had subtly influenced development without stifling growth. The Void Dancers will reach our galaxy in approximately 1,000 years, Chen said. That gives us time to prepare, but only if we work together. Not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and primitive, but as equals, each bringing our own perspective to the challenge. The chamber shifted again, and suddenly every representative could see their species' true place in the galaxy's history, not as competitors in some cosmic game of dominance, but as different expressions of life itself, each valuable, each necessary. The question before you is simple, Martins concluded. Will you join us not as subjects or subordinates, but as true partners in facing what comes? Will you help us prove that life in all its forms, working together, can face even the impossible? Vexcath stood, his forearms raised in the ancient Kraxen gesture of acceptance. Around the chamber, other representatives rose as well, some physically, others in ways that transcended normal space. Species that had once fought wars found themselves united in purpose. And as humanity finally stepped fully into the light, revealing their true nature not as conquerors or overlords, but as guardians and teachers, the galaxy began to transform. Not through force or dominance, but through the most powerful force of all, the voluntary cooperation of countless different minds, united in the greatest challenge life had ever faced. The age of secrets was over. The age of true unity had begun.